Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today I'm going to be talking about the first of my sweater stash down sweaters. Surprisingly, this is the first sweater that I've finished this year, which is a little crazy. I usually knit a lot of sweaters because I just knit sweaters, like that's normal. But this year I've been really into the sock design challenge, so I've knit like 12 pairs of socks. Also, I work full time, so yeah, I have to like pick and choose my knitting projects based on how much time I have. So today I'm wearing the throw over, but I steeked it into a throwback by Andrea Mowry. This is knit in Briggs & Little Heritage. Oh, it's a little pilly, I should probably shave it. In, I don't know, mulberry, I think, or mulberry heather maybe. I wore this because Briggs & Little is going to feature heavily in this video, as the sweater that I have made is also knit in Briggs & Little. And then the yoke is done in Peace Fleece, in Lily Pad, Morning Dove, and I can't remember, Volgasippi Blue. Yeah, Volgasippi Blue. I did some sample knitting for Peace Fleece a few years ago. If you've ever seen the like pictures that I don't know if you follow Peace Fleece, like the actual social media of Peace Fleece, not just like through Harrisville or through something else. There, a couple of years ago, they came out with this new collection of like a couple of sweaters and stuff, and a pair of mittens that was like re-released, and I knit both of those mittens, both of those pairs, the kids ones and the adult ones. And they sent me a lot of yarn and they did not want it back, which was nice of them. So I've been trying to use it in various places, and one of those places you will see today in the next sweater. So Peace Fleece and Briggs were both used in the sweater that I made. Slow down, Emma, slow down. Okay. Yep, and I used these buttons. I've shown this before. The St. George, patron saint of Wales buttons that my mom's friend Barb had in her collection. My mom's friend Barb is like her childhood friend, and we went to visit Barb in Toronto, 6 months ago, and Barb has this huge button collection because people I may have said this before, but people keep giving her buttons, like her mom's friends keep giving her their button collections. Because they're like elderly and they're like, we can't use all these, we've collected all these buttons. So Barb has tons of buttons, and she and my mom are both like really into textiles, like they like to sew and stuff. But like Barb's like, when am I ever going to use all these buttons? Please take some for your cardigans. And so my mom and I took some buttons from Barb, which was really nice of her. And they're kind of like plastic, but make a weird sound. So I don't like to have the sweater unbuttoned because the buttons like hit stuff and clank. But anyway, let's get to the point. Yeah, this is the first, I did cast this on and I knitted it in about 2 weeks because it's just one of those wools where like, you know, you have your like sweet spot of wool that like lets you knit, or yarn, doesn't have to be wool, that lets you knit like really fast. It's like the combination of the wool and the needle size, it just like flies. Briggs & Little is that for me. This is Heritage, which is knit at about like an Aran weight. So it's knit at like a 16 stitches over 4 inches gauge. And then Regal, which I used today. Here, I'll show you this gauge. Regal is more like worsted. It's 272 yards. So you might think of that as like a DK, but like there's so much, it's just lightweight because it's woolen spun. And it just, there's a lot of yardage. It's definitely worsted to me. So I knit it at about an 18 stitches. This says 20 stitches over 4 inches on 4.5 millimeter needles, but I would not get that gauge. So know thyself in terms of gauge. Swatch. For you using a yarn that's new to you, you should swatch. I say that, I don't do it all the time. I try to do it. I don't always wash my swatches, but I do my best. Okay, anyway, the sweater that I made, and this is I think the third time I've knit this particular pattern, is Riddari by Vidas Jansdottir. There you go. Riddari. This is from the book Knitting with Icelandic Wool. I've probably shown this book before a couple of times. I've knit a lot of patterns out of this book. I will link it in the show notes, a link where you can get it. I got it at Knitty City. There's 65 patterns in here, and if you like to knit Lopi sweaters, it's really great, just generally. There's a lot of sweaters in like Alafas Lopi, which you can knit if you like to knit bulky sweaters. But you can also, like, once you kind of knit a few and you kind of get a feel for the gauge and like how many rounds you need to do in the yoke, you can adjust and put those patterns into a Lopi sweater if you'd like. There's a lot of kids stuff, which is really useful if you are knitting for like kiddos. There's this like stuff with Plotter Lopi held double. Some cool stuff like that. I really like this one. Really cool detail on the sleeves with a little cross. Yeah, lots of little adorable little things. One time when I first got this book, I'm not sure if I'm repeating myself, so if you've watched my channel a lot, I'm sorry. When I got this book, I was living in the dorm in grad school, and my friend, who's also a grad student who's living in that dorm, he does improv comedy, and he decided to like look through this book, and there's a bunch of models in this book that like recur. So there's like, I don't know, there's like a 7-year-old model and like a 2-year-old model and like a baby model and then like a bunch of women and men. And he decided to make up a story about them with his improv skills, and the baby was like a killer. It was like a murder mystery. It was very funny, and I think about that every time I open this book. So that's fun. Okay, so this is the sweater. Here it is. I'm not sure what's the front and which is the back. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Because there's no, I didn't do short rows at the neck. I did them like right after I joined the yoke. So I just forgot to do them at the neck, because usually if you do them at the neck, even though they're not built into the pattern, that makes it easy to tell which is the front and the back. Like, well, for this one, obviously there's buttons down the front, but like there's some short row shaping that I did on the back of the neck, so you can tell which is the front and the back. So I knit this in Briggs & Little Regal in this, I think it's called dark gray, and 3 other colors. I followed the Riddari pattern, but you don't have to. The nice thing about this is that like if you've got your main color and you've got kind of one contrast, but you can change every time you have a new contrast color if you want. But like you could have like this be different, this be different, this be different, this be different. You could have like a bunch of different colors. What I would suggest with a pattern like this, if you want the yoke to be high contrast, is to choose whatever color you choose. Let's say you choose a light color for the body, you should choose a dark color for where I use this light color here. And then you should choose other light colors in here. Because that way you will see the pattern everywhere. So I used Harrisville Watershed for this light blue color. I think it's called Birch Bark. Birch, maybe not. I will figure that out and I will make sure it's in the show notes. The darker blue, it's like a dark teal here, that's called Baikal Blue. It's something like Baikal Superior Blue or something. Green, maybe Baikal Superior Green. It's a very deep green with some flecks of like a blue in it. I don't know if you can totally see it. Maybe I'll show it here. Yeah, hard to tell, but it's a really dark kind of teal, which is, of course, if you've seen my channel before, you know is my favorite color. This also was part of the sample knitting I did from Peace Fleece. I still had some left. And then this one is Baltic Blue, which is also Peace Fleece. And I remember buying this. I got it for myself when I was buying a bunch of Peace Fleece to make my brother a sweater. A few years ago, I bought a bunch of the dark red, I think this is the best red in existence. It's called Amaranth and it's by Peace Fleece. Sorry, I just adjusted the camera. I think it was tilted a little bit. Anyway, it's called Amaranth and it's by Peace Fleece and it's beautiful. I don't think I've ever shown anything with it on my channel, but I was gonna make him this big cabled sweater, and so I got like 10 skeins of this Aran weight And then I ended up just making him a plain sweater, which was probably too small in the end. Because I couldn't do the cables because it hurt my hand so much, because Peace Fleece has mohair in it, and it's really, your hands can get used to that, but anything that's like fussy, like that you're like really pulling the yarn a lot, like with cables, it just hurt my joints. So I decided to scrap that and just frog it, and then I made him just a plain sweater with like some stripes at the yoke, and it was nice. And then I could have made a second sweater like that. I had so much left over, so I made an F Melee in the red, and then I made another F Melee, but I had one, like I just used it for the flowers. It was like a brown. And then I still had so much left that I made a whole F Melee, like I said. And then it was like a dark gray and a white. It was really nice. I gave both of those sweaters to other people, which is normally what I do. So I don't have them, but I will put pictures of them in the show notes if you want to see them. So it's still the morning, so I'm drinking tea. This is a cool mug. My aunt got it for me for Christmas, and it's made by Porter, which at first I thought was the airline, because my aunt lives in Toronto, and Porter Airlines is also, that's where they're based. So I used to fly Porter between Burlington, Vermont, which is where I grew up, and Toronto when I was in undergrad, because they had a flight that would fly to Vermont on like a Thursday or a Friday. They had a couple of flights every weekend for skiers, and it was really awesome because the Porter flies out of the city airport in Toronto and not the one like way out, like the Pearson airport, which is their big international airport. So I could just like take the streetcar down to the airport. It was amazing. Yeah, amazing. I think that Reagan, which is in Washington, D.C., that's like the smaller airport, not the big international. Dulles International is the big one. I think Reagan flies into Billy Bishop. So when I fly to Toronto from here, that will be useful. It's actually pretty easy to get to Reagan because it's on the subway line. Just have to find somewhere to leave your car in DC. If you're like me and you have connections, it works. So by that I mean I'm probably just gonna park it outside the kids' house where I used to nanny because they have parking pass. Yeah, this is great. I was like really afraid it was gonna be too small, but because it's for one of my friends I'm going to stay with in England, and I think it's going to be fine. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I have so bad at sizing men's sweaters. Like, I'm so bad at it. I can't even believe how bad I am at it. But yeah, so one thing about this that's kind of annoying if you have never encountered it is that there are some 3-color rows. So most Fair Isle knitting, you just use 2 colors per row. You're just changing those colors a lot, or you could be changing those colors a lot. But in this, and this is an Icelandic pullover, there's a few rows like there. I think there's one here. There might be another one there, 2 there. When I first made these, I made it 2 Riddaris before this one a couple of years ago. And I caught my floats much more often back then. I was much more concerned with catching them, especially in the 3-color rows. Like if you'd have like 7 stitches before you had to do another of that stitch of the same color, that would scare me. So I would catch them, and it was such a hassle. It's such a hassle to try and catch floats of 3 colors. I'm sure that some people do not mind this and they are very good at it. And like people have told me in my comments, like, oh, this is how I do it. I'm like, that's super cool. I can only use one hand, for my left hand, for wrapping the yarn. So I'm a picker, not a thrower. And like I knit continental, but I also knit through the back loops, which is weird. So, I can't do that. I appreciate the advice, and I'm like stunned at people who can like do 3 colors and catch their floats, and like that's super cool. I will never be that person. So here's the thing though. It depends on the type of yarn you're working with. If you are working with a superwash wool, you're gonna want to catch floats like every 3 or 4 stitches. Like, be very diligent about that, because superwash yarn means that the scales on wool, the naturally occurring sort of scales on wool, like on your hair. I don't know if you've ever like seen a picture of hair up close, but it has scales on it. Those are essentially burned off with a chemical process. Superwash treatment is not great for the environment. And like that means that superwash, that's why superwash wool cannot felt or is unlikely to felt. So with a non-superwash wool, especially if it's woolen spun like this, you can see there's just like fibers, kind of like, it's, you know, this is 100% wool. It's from Canada. I'll talk about Briggs in a minute. But yeah, this is like, is one of the best yarns you can use for felting. So be careful with it, obviously. But like felting won't happen, like real felting where it will shrink. That won't happen unless you're putting it in like hot water and then cold water. And you should, like, to get a real, like something really felted, or you put it in the washing machine with an agitator, which was what my mom used to do. But it, like, it's not gonna, when you're blocking it, even if you use really hot water, this isn't gonna felt. Like I used very hot water when I blocked this sweater, and I put it in the water for, you know, a good day or so, maybe half a day. I like to give it a long bath. It doesn't matter. Like what I would say is, my general tip for blocking, what my own process is, so I have a laundry sink and I have a bucket. I don't actually block it in the laundry sink. I block it in it's a bucket from Target. And I don't put the sweater in it. You can, it doesn't really matter. But I generally turn on the laundry sink. The water gets hot really fast, like really quite hot. Like not hot enough that I can't like put my hands in it to submerge the sweater briefly, but like I wouldn't want to keep my hands in that bucket of water. I have pretty sensitive hands. So probably like 130 degrees. I don't know how hot it is, but it's hot. And then I fill it to however much I want it to be full. Then I put in wool wash. And if you put the wool wash in like while the water is running, it will get really bubbly. I think that's okay. Like the advice that I've always been given is just like put the wool wash in after the water is stopped running, and it will just kind of like sit on the top. Then I put the sweater in and I like fold it up and I push it all the way down. And you want to get some of the air out of the sweater so that it doesn't float right back. So it will sit, like it's not going to come out of the water, but it will like sit on the top of the water. Then you just leave it, and I would leave it until the water, at least until the water was cold or like room temperature. So that's my process. But if you leave it for longer than that, it's okay. Like I sometimes leave it for 24 hours without remembering. It's occasionally longer because it's in the basement. And then I roll it in a towel. I pour the water out. Try not to wring the sweater, especially if you're using a loose gauge or a superwash wool. Don't wring that sweater because you'll see the wring marks and it'll stretch it. So you just pour the water out, kind of squeeze the sweater against the bottom of the bucket while I'm doing that. It's still gonna be pretty wet, and then I roll it in a towel. Like you kind of fold it up, roll it in the towel, and then like step all over the towel. Like really, like that's not, because you're not wringing it with your hands, it's like in the towel, that's okay. And then I lay it out on blocking mats. And I try not to lift it by the shoulders. I try to like dump it on the mat and then arrange it, because if you lift it by the shoulders, it can stretch out of shape. So if you're using a wool like this, you can lift it, wring it however you want. Pretty much it's gonna be fine. But general rule, you don't want to get complacent. Yeah, so that's fun. This was a delight to knit. Anyway, so you don't have to catch your floats, even if you have like 7 floats, because this yarn is so toothy. All these yarns, the Watershed, the Peace Fleece, and the Briggs, they're not all spun at the same mill, although the Harrisville Watershed and the Peace Fleece are spun at the same mill. They're spun at Harrisville. Briggs is spun in New Brunswick. Did it say here where? Briggs and Little Woolen Mills. Yeah, Briggs and Little. It's their own mill. Oh, it doesn't smell like, I didn't use the jasmine wool wash on this one. I only have a little bottle of jasmine wool wash, and it smelled really good, so I usually do it for like neck accessories. I need to get a bigger one. That's my favorite of the smells of wool wash, is the jasmine. So, because these yarns are toothy, on the inside here, I haven't trimmed my ends. I did weave them in, but I haven't trimmed them. They're locked together already. Like, there's not a lot of movement in these floats, even now. The more you wear it, the more those floats will lock together. Like, if you have stuff on your sleeves, like at the bottom of your sleeves, if there's color work, that, because you could be wearing bracelets or a watch, that's a place where you're gonna wanna catch floats every 3 or 4 stitches. If that is, if like the floats are longer than that, you're gonna wanna catch them because they can catch on a bracelet. But up here, I mean, I wear a necklace, but like, I don't think I've ever caught it on my float. Sometimes, like the worst thing that's happened is like, if you have like a bra that has like a hook in the back to turn it into a racer back, sometimes the hook will catch, like, which is often why I just wear a t-shirt underneath my sweaters, because I really don't want, I mean, that can happen, it can grab any kind of stitch, but like it will be more likely to grab a float. So be careful if like that is something that is in your wardrobe, because that is scary. One time it happened to me and I had to just like take off, I had to like go into my room and take off all of my clothes to like unhook it, and it was a disaster, and like the sweater almost got ruined. So be careful. Yeah, so sorry if that was TMI. I try not to be graphic about it. Let's talk about Briggs. Okay, Briggs & Little. I've talked about this yarn before. It is a Canadian wool, 100% Canadian wool, pure wool. The skeins are almost always 113 grams, or 4 ounces total. Hand wash with mild soap and lukewarm water. You can tell that costs $7.25. Cheap. It's very, and that was Canadian dollars, so this is expensive, or not expensive. They'll tell you the color in the lot. Be careful with these. Be careful with the lots. If you are buying it in a store, check the lots are the same. If you are buying it online, check when you get them before you wind it up. And if you have 2 different lots, you should do helical knitting, because as I've said before, you can get, my mom had a problem when she knit this sweater actually. She knit hers in brown, Briggs & Little Heritage. I think Brooklyn Tweed Shelter for the yoke. It's super pretty. And I had it happen to me once too, is that I didn't check the lots and one of them was different. You can kind of see it. Because, yeah, so helical knitting. You should learn how to do helical knitting if you're not familiar with it. I'll link a YouTube tutorial. It's basically just a way to do alternating skeins. It doesn't kind of leave jogs or weird floats or pulls anywhere. It's great. It really only works with stockinette in the round, but in like not in color work, like you're slipping stitches, so you need to be pretty much doing it in one color. But it's a really useful technique. So Briggs has several lines of yarn. They have like all the way down, they have like a fingering weight, it's called Sport, Briggs & Little Sport, I think is their thinnest, and they have Dura Sport, which is a 20% nylon, but it's not super wash, so you can make socks with it, but it's not super wash. I have a skein of that, but downstairs, or some skeins of the Sport, which is more like a fingering because the yardage is really high, and also the Dura Sport. If you've ever used lichen and lace, like rustic something, lichen and lace something, I'll find the name and I will link it in the show notes. Rustic Sport, maybe that's what it's called. That's on Briggs & Little Sport base. They make it in 50-gram skeins and dye it beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colors. And Briggs has a lot of colors. It's all dyed in the wool, and the colors are really nice. Big variety. If you're getting Regal, which is again the sort of worsted weight, worsted DK, it's a different set of colors, partially different set of colors from like Heritage, which is this one. Heritage has a lot more solid colors. Heritage Sport, Atlantic, which is the sort of bulkier Aran weight, and then I think there's Tuffy, and I think Atlantic also has the same colors as Sport and Heritage. So there's a wide variety of colors. Regal comes in more heathered colors. There's a lot of really beautiful sort of subtle heathers in Regal. And Regal's my favorite one because the yardage is so high and you can get just so much out of one skein of this. Like I might have enough to make another whole sweater, like a my size sweater with the rest. There's probably 2.5. I had 6 of these and I think I have 2.5 left. I probably haven't enough to get a whole sweater for me, like the F. Meili sweater or something that has like not very much of the main color in the yoke, something like that. Yeah, it goes really far. So that's fun. But yeah, this was a nice stash buster. It's my first sweater stash down stash buster sweater for the year. So I'm really excited that it's done and I feel productive. I used my stash. These were all bits and bobs. I had, well, sort of. The Birch Bark, I had 2 skeins of that, which they come in 50 gram skeins. So I had 100 grams and I used probably like 80 grams of that. So you will need like almost 100. I would get 100 grams of this kind of main contrasting color if you're making this sweater. I didn't have very much of that dark blue, but it only gets used a little bit. And I had maybe like 50 grams of this Baltic blue. I still have some left. So I used scraps, which was really exciting. I love to use scraps. And I used this yarn that's been in my stash since the summer of 2019 when I got it in Canada. And I got it, I knew there were 2 different dye lots because I got 5 skeins at Romney Wools in Toronto. And then I was in Picton with my mom and my aunt, which is in, if you've never been to Canada, to Ontario, whatever, maybe you've just never been to Picton. It's in the, what do you call that? Prince Edward County. It's really nice. They just call it the county. My mom's cousin lived there for some time, and my mom, she doesn't live there anymore now. She lives in France, but she was there and we would go stay with her in her friend's really nice B&B. That was just beautiful. And it's a really beautiful place. It's on the bay. I don't know what bay it is because I forget. It's on the water. Maybe it's on a river, but there's boats. And there's one of my friends from undergrad is from there. She knits. Hi, Sarah. I don't know if you watch my channel. One of my friends from undergrad, Sarah, is from Picton, and she told me about the yarn store. And my mom loves Picton. She goes there even though her cousin doesn't live there anymore because it's on the way home from Toronto, or from like her sister has a cottage in the Kawarthas, and it's Picton's on the way home from there back to Vermont. And there's a really nice store, like a consignment store called City Revival, which is like the best consignment store in the world. And my mom is obsessed with it. And we have a lot of great finds from City Revival. And yeah, one of her sisters is like very adventurous with trying stuff on. And she tried on this incredible coat that has like a white coat with these amazing rainbow polka dots. And it was really cool, but it was like designer and it was like $1,000 or something, like on consignment. So that was crazy. Fun, but crazy. Anyway, I got this in Picton. And I can tell because there's a price tag on it because they had it there. And I had bought 5 at Romney, and then I saw it in Picton and I was like, what if I need a 6th? Because I thought I was going to make a sweater dress with it. I've still never made a sweater dress and I would like to. There's a couple of sweater dresses in this book, actually. I think I was using the pattern for this one. I wouldn't probably wear this one that I'm about to show you, but because it's kind of a lot, but I like it. It's just the patterning is a lot and it's kind of these bright colors, but I liked the shape. I'll show you, here's the shape. And I liked it. It was like vaguely A-line. There's a long option and a short option. It's got, you know, kind of optional patterning. You can put any pattern on the yoke. Like if you've made an Icelandic sweater, you know how many stitches you need in your yoke. Like basically the small version, yeah, you'd have 240 stitches, which is how many I would have basically with any Lopi sweater in my yoke from my size. So it'd be easy to just insert your pattern of choice into the yoke. So maybe one of these days I'll make one. That would be fun. Yeah, I was gonna make it with this charcoal yarn, but then I thought this would be better, and it is. Briggs & Little also, like I said, this is $7.25 Canadian. It's very inexpensive. So you can get it, as I've said before, but you might be new to my channel. You can get it from Maritime Family Fibers. They are the US stockist for Briggs & Little. and they have a website, and they stock all the colors. They might not always have every color in stock. So check. If they don't have it, you could email them and ask when they're getting their next shipment if you want. They're in Maine, and Briggs is in New Brunswick, which is right above Maine. So I think it's really just easy for them to do it, to import it over the land border. So they like go get it in a van or something, which is cool. You can buy Heritage. I bought this color of Heritage at Webb's, actually. They usually have 8 or 9 colors of Heritage at Webb's, but not the whole selection. And if you want the whole selection, you got to check out somewhere else. I think I have bought it before from a place called Penelope Fiber Arts, which is in British Columbia, and they will ship to the US. Again, I think because they're really close to the border, it's easy for them to ship to the US. So I've gotten it from them before too. You can pretty much get it in any yarn store in Canada because it's like the bread and butter of Canadian yarn, and Canadians love to knit with it because it's local. So not any Canadian yarn store, like some of them are fancy, and Briggs is kind of like a workhorsey yarn. And it also takes up a lot of space. So if the yarn store is small, they might not have it, but generally it's pretty easy to find in yarn stores in Canada. If you are in Canada, you should have no trouble getting it because anywhere will ship it to you. But yeah, if you're in America, Maritime Family Fiber is usually your best bet. Although sometimes, again, they're out of stock of certain colors. So Briggs is the best. And again, this is for Lopi. Like this whole book uses Lopi, Istex Lopi yarns. But you can substitute any worsted weight yarns you want. So I like to use the workhorsey yarns because they hold up really well, and I know that this sweater will last like 50 years if I want it to, and I keep it nice and I make sure that I clean it regularly so it doesn't get eaten by moths, and I depill it sometimes. It'll last a long time. So I like to use, but I love Lopi. I have knit several Lopi sweaters, but I've only actually kept one, and it is one of my favorite sweaters. It's super warm. And like I said, not always comfortable to wear next to skin. It's toothy. Just wear it long sleeve under it, or a turtleneck if it's really uncomfortable on your neck. It's super insulating, really warm. It's still cold here. It's like, it kind of has been fluctuating here for a while, because in Baltimore in like February and March, there's days when it's like 80 degrees, and then there's days when it's like 30 degrees, as I've said probably before in a recent video. And so right now is like the time when you keep thinking, oh, it's spring, it's beautiful, it's 70 degrees, and then that night it'll be like 45 degrees. So that's fun. But today and tomorrow are gonna be really warm. Tomorrow I think it's gonna be like 75 degrees and maybe a little rainy. And then Monday also really warm. And then all of a sudden like 45 on Tuesday. So yeah, that's kind of the way it goes. So hopefully spring. I don't want to like wish spring to be here so soon because then I'll have to put away all my wool and then it will get super hot. But that's fine. Winter will come again. I am looking forward to just like, I like the time of year when you don't have to turn on your heat because heat's really expensive here. Gas is really expensive here. Gas is really expensive right now generally because of the war. So yeah, it's I can't wait for it to get warm because of that reason, but I don't like putting away my sweaters because I like my sweaters. But it's nice when it's like the time of year when it's like in the 50s sometimes, and you can just kind of like wear your sweaters in the morning, like the lightweight ones that I don't always put away. I have like my lightweight sweaters. You tend to completely put them away at all. Well, here I would, because it's like 100 degrees every day in the summer here and humid, which is gross. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. I talked about the book, talked about Briggs, talked about the sweater. Hold up the sweater again so you can see it. Let's see, what's the back? That's the back. It doesn't matter a whole lot. There's a little jog, but it's kind of hard to see. There it is. Hopefully that's the screenshot. If not, I'm gonna have to make it the screenshot. Yeah. definitely recommend. If you have seen my videos recently, I did a cast on fast. I started it in the middle of January and I ended it in the middle of February. I'm doing another one because it's Lent. Yeah, I like to give things up for Lent. People have different relationships with Lent depending on if they're Christian, depending on their denomination, their personal kind of feelings about it. I like to give things up for Lent to remind myself of things that are important. So, or you can do a Lenten discipline. So like one of my Lenten disciplines is that when I'm at work, I have to go to the gym every day. And it's a discipline because I want to be moving my body, because I've had a lot of kind of like, especially in COVID, like you can't always go to the gym or go outside. And I like to be able to go there because it's not too hot or not too cold. You can always kind of like wear the same clothes. The gym at work is right next to my building, so it's easy to kind of go in the middle of the day for 40 minutes there and go for a run on the treadmill. So that's my Lenten discipline, but I always have a lot. Like usually I don't buy yarn. I'm not doing that this year because I'm going to England in a couple of weeks and I don't want to deprive myself of that or feel guilty like for breaking the fast. So I'm just like trying not to buy yarn that I don't need. But yeah, so instead I'm doing a cast on fast because I still have a lot of whips. And then I cast a bunch on. Like I had this one, and then I have a couple of other sweaters that I cast on for my sweater stash down. My Nurtured by Andrea Mowry for the March to May cal, and the Classic by Espace Tricot, which is a mohair and fingering weight held double sweater for the Little Red Mitten Hold Me double cal. So those are both on the needles. I have a Fair Isle cowl for the Woolly Thistle cal that probably won't get done in time, but it'll be done at some point. I have still a huge Fair Isle sweater, my Hilda sweater. I need to do a video on that because there's a whole saga with the first sleeve and it didn't get, the first sleeve got done, but it was huge. So I'm gonna do a video about how I'm dealing with that because I'm gonna have to reknit the first sleeve, which is a lot of work, but it will be worth it in the end because it'll fit. What else on the needles? 2 pairs of socks currently. I'm probably gonna, when I finish those socks, I will cast on another pair of socks because I have to keep knitting the socks for the sock challenge. So that's fine. Actually 3 pairs on the needles because I always have a pair at work that's just self-striping. I usually use Knit Picks Felici. I get my roommate Hannah and I get the 10 pack every time they come out with new colors, and we like split it. We each choose one and keep going until we've chosen all 10. And I have one that's almost done, so I'm gonna get to cast on the new one because it's for like Zoom calls and stuff. Because I have some Zoom calls where I don't have to be responsible for anything, and then you just sit and you have to listen to people talking about different things and you knit. That's what I like to do. So I'll probably cast on another one this week because I am on the toe of the second one, and then I do afterthought heels with Felici, so I divide the ball because it's a 50-gram ball, and I don't want to be wasteful and get 2 balls and have a ton left over. So I use the winder and I count how many stripes are in it. Usually it's like 31 or 32 stripes, and then I cut it in half, and I have like 15 stripes and 15 stripes or something in each one, and I knit the whole until the end of that ball. Like I have a cuff, and then I knit to the end of the ball, and then I do a toe in a contrast. I always do contrast heels, toes, and cuffs, and then I'll show it sometime. Yeah. And then I put in afterthought heels so that it's as long as it can possibly be. I use every possible yard of yarn. I'm wearing some today. Let's see if I can get my foot. I'm wearing jeans, so here they are. So this colorway is called Under the Sea, and then I used a West Yorkshire Spinners in Juniper, which was a really close match with that blue. Usually I try to match with my scraps the heels, toes, and cuffs, or I just do something that's complementary to the palette, or that's a pop with the palette, or When I say palette, I mean the color palette of stripes. Palette is also a yarn that Knit Picks makes. I don't want anyone to get confused. Felici is the yarn that I'm using for the socks. Yep. So the reason that I'm doing this though is because I would like to just kind of like make the knitting more about like the knitting and not about the producing of things, because when I'm casting and casting and casting on, I feel like it's just, I'm doing it just to like produce stuff, and that's not how I feel about knitting at all. I feel that it is like therapeutic. So I like to make things for people and give people knitwear and things, because that's, you know, a way to not keep all of my projects, but also it's nice. It feels nice to, you know, make sure that all your friends are warm by giving them socks or sweaters or hats or whatever. So mittens, I did a lot of mittens at a time in my life. So that's fun. And then, you know, it just kind of helps you. I want to just like enjoy using the beautiful wool that is in my stash and to appreciate every stitch and to kind of like reconnect with just like the process of knitting and the stitch patterns and do things that challenge me. So I'm excited about that. I mean, it's going well. It feels like it's a productive thing to do. And it also kind of helps you take stock doing something like this. It helps you take stock of your like really old whips, because you kind of have to decide if you want to keep them or not. And like, I have a couple of whips that are just so old. It's like, well, I don't know if, you know, it's a hard choice. So you just have to, kind of come to terms with some of your older projects and decide if they're worth continuing or if you want to frog them. So I frogged one big project, at least, maybe two from in my last one. And I think I'm going to frog another two. Well, yeah, two more maybe. I want to knit one of them, but I've done it. I feel like I need to like figure out how to like do it in a more productive way so that it fits better, because I made a certain decision about how I wanted to do the construction, and the way that it started, it's going to be way too big. So that was a roundabout way of saying I need to frog something so that I can reknit it and it will fit better. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. This has been a long video, actually. I didn't anticipate that this would be a 42-minute video, but I thought it was gonna be too short and I was gonna have to find more things to talk about. So clearly I found more things to talk about. I always find more things to talk about. So yeah, thanks for staying with me. All the way to the end if you're still watching. This was exciting. I was like, now I have like enough subscribers and viewers to like monetize my channel, which is exciting. I don't get that much money from it, because if you have YouTube and you know, it's not very much, but it's from ad sales. And so I'm sorry if there are ads and they're annoying, but know that you are supporting me by having the ads be there. Hopefully most of them are skippable, because I'm not that important. I did you can like click off certain types of ads. So like I clicked off like the banner ads, because I don't want people to like get a banner that that's annoying. I don't like the pop-up things like that. But you can like and subscribe, smash that like button, or smash that subscribe button. What are you supposed to say? I don't know. I'm not, you know me, I'm just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants. I don't do this for the money, but it's nice because it is like, this is like, it is kind of effort now, and it's fun though. I still like doing it, but you know, if YouTube pays me, then I can like do giveaways and prizes and stuff, and that's cool. So I guess it benefits my viewers in the end anyway. So thank you for watching, and this has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Bye!